Hey everybody, I know it's been a minute on my channel here with You Matter, but I am thankful for all the people that do subscribe towards it, and I hope you are looking at my main channel, Empathdivine Intuitive, for spiritual and divination over there. And I also do upliftment over there as well too, but here, just straight talking. So I hope all is well, or whatever you're seeing this on, what platform that I'm on, I may share this video. So I know you've seen the title, and the title is saying Chase Fear. Now, if it fit on there, it might have fit on there or it might not, but I really wanted to say to chase fear and knock fear out. Okay, so if it didn't go on there, that's what I really wanted to say. I feel like fear is the big talk. I really feel like we can't really go a day without mentioning fear, because fear is literally at an all-time high with all the things that we're seeing that's happening in the world and individually with our life. It's just fear is rampant. Now, one thing, a lot of you do know that fear is a spirit. It is. Fear is a spirit. Believe it or not, it's a spirit and it's an energy. And I feel like the more that we think fear and the more we put fear in the atmosphere, it's like that fear energy gets bigger. It gets bigger. And really, to be honest, a lot of us don't intentionally do this, right? Who intentionally wants to bring fear in your life? A lot of us do unintentionally. We attract the fear towards us. Remember, whatever we want, whatever we speak, we're going to attract it towards us. So immediately, if you are being afraid of things, you're bringing that kind of fear energy into you. And I always tell people, fear is a very dangerous thing. It really is. It's very dangerous. It can affect you mentally, physically, emotionally. And out of fear, you could do some things that's like you would think to yourself, I wouldn't ever do this, right? I know you guys will see some stories, and you will see stories about things that happen to people. And in the moment of fear, we even see some stories that people get into overkill. And we're not condoning what people do, but I'm just saying, you'll hear some stories and say, well, listen, in that moment, I was in fear. Fear took over my body, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I kept doing this. I kept shooting. I kept doing this. And they did things out of fear. Fear will make you do a lot. I even remember there was a talk one time I seen somewhere that someone asked a question, and they asked you, if you had to pick two things, would you want somebody to fear you or respect you? And I would want somebody to respect me. Why would we want somebody to fear us? When someone fears you, they're capable of doing anything when they're feared, because fear will make you do the unthinkable, right? You will want somebody to respect you, to know not to overstep their boundaries. Even if you disagree to agree on things, they will have that respect. But a person that fears you will do anything. A person will fear you and feel like you're competing against them, you're out for them, you're going to do this and going to do that. I would rather a person respect. So fear is always a big topic here. Fear is around us, fear is among us, fear is there, but it is a spirit. So when the title saying that I was saying about chasing fear and knocking out fear, I do feel that it's a channel message I'm picking up to tell somebody this. It is really time for you to stop running. And you have to ask yourself this. I feel like what would be really good for you guys in this really short video is that you get out a notebook and a pen. That's right. And you need to really answer this question I'm going to ask. How long have you been running away from fear? And put it down. Some of you are going to say, all my life. Some of you are going to say the last 5 years or so. How long have you been running away from fear? And the more you run away from fear, the fear gets bigger, because you are afraid. That's why you're running from it. You're afraid of it, and that's why you're running from it. So it gets bigger. In that circle and bubble of fear is your inner shadow. Sometimes it's things that we conjure up in our head that's not even really going to happen, but we have a fear of it. Now, the next question you may ask yourself when you answer that question, how long you've been running from your fears, the next question you have to say to yourself, when did you start noticing you have fear? A lot of people who are very fear-based have fear ever since you've been a child, right? And a lot of people, fear has been connected to their childhood and how they grew up, and how fear was talked about in the household, right? If you had a parent or a guardian who didn't touch base on fear and allow you to feel these energies, which is normal, by the way, to feel fear. Come on, I'm not going to tell you you're not going to ever be afraid. We're humans. We're going to be afraid. But if you didn't have a parent to allow you to talk about the fear and then work on that fear itself, it accumulated, right? It's like when you were a child and you might have ran to your parents and say, hey, I think it's a monster under my bed. I'm afraid. If the parent doesn't go to the child and say, come here, let me show you something. There's no monster under the bed. And then proceed to tell the child, if you see the monster, you knock the monster out. Like, you give them that confidence to tell them that they can defeat it. A lot of people who embrace fear and have fear embraced it because they were never taught to realize that fear is the mind. It's the subconscious. We weren't taught that, and we can't knock our parents for that. We can't really knock our parents for that because it was, I feel it was genetically just kept repeating. Maybe their parents didn't teach them about fear, right? Maybe their parents just ignored it and say, oh, get out of here, stop being scary, go get, instead of saying, wait a minute, my child is really afraid. They have a fear of something. Why don't they want to take that leap? Why don't they want to try this? Why don't they want to touch that? Instead of getting to the root of the problem. And I feel like when we get to the root of the problem of fear itself, we can understand it. Build kind of a relationship with fear. I'm not saying be fear's friend, but kind of have a sit down and say, okay, I don't like you. I don't like what you're giving, but I do want to understand why you are about. Why do you linger around me? Fear, it does have a connection to our suppressed emotions. So that question, that's the next question, is you have to start getting to the problem here about when did you notice the fear start accumulating in your life? And you can start writing down the things in your time span of your age, what was causing fear, and did you ever, not avoid it, but did you ever defeat it, basically? And some of you might agree to that, and you might say, yeah, I did have a fear to drive, or I did have a fear to do this, and I did do it. You accomplished it. And then you notice that fear never came back again because you defeated it. You became fearless. So if some of you listening and you name some things, I don't care if it's the littlest things, guys. It could be the littlest, simplest things, because this is another thing. I don't want you guys to feel that the things that you have fear about is silly. It's not silly. It's normal. So, and mind you, get this personal journal for you. This journal is yours. And think about some things that you might have once were afraid about and had fear about. And then when you faced it head on, you're like, wow, that's it. And you accomplished it and you became fearless and it never came back. So write that, because you want to use that as an example to compare this to what you still are afraid of. Now, some of you may have said you did that, and others might have said, listen, there's still some things that still taunt me and haunt me from when I was younger to how old I am now. That is things you still may have to work on, because that is being included in what you are afraid of today and have fear of today, right? We have fear of everything, fear of dying, fear of everything, right? And we have to get to that part of why. So after you get to that part, I feel like another important thing you can do. This is something I had thought in my head, and I was doing a channel message on my other channel for somebody, and it came out in somebody's read. Now, for people that are listening to me, that come across me, you may be religious. If you are, you don't have to listen to this part, but if you are open-minded and spiritual, then cool. But I had set an energy into it, and I said a message, and I said, some of you need to make a punching bag, and you need to get a punching bag, and you need to write down on paper and write down everything you have fear of and tape it to that punching bag and punch the light out of it. Give it all your might and talk about how these situations no longer will have a hold on your life, because that's what it is. It has a hold on your life to prevent you from living your life. Fear will create scenarios in your head to keep you in a shell, okay? So I feel like that's something you can do too. Listen, you can make a punching bag of these things, or you even could get a dartboard, okay? I was picking that energy up too, and getting the arrows and darting. Now, yes, of course, some of you are going to say, oh, okay, but that's just not going to erase the problem. It's not, but it's going to get you to work through the triggers of the problem. That's the thing. When we start to realize that fear is a spirit, yes, fear can come through us as a human. Some of you might have parents or people that you have fear of, because that fear itself is a spirit that transported inside of the person. So that's the thing we have to separate ourselves from, to realize that fear in fact is a spirit. So it is good to do these kind of mental, emotional, and physical exercises to get you to start to see fear from a different narrative. You have to look at fear as a spirit. That's what you have to look at it. And you have to look at it as a spirit that you didn't ask for, but in a way you kind of conjure it up because of what you are dealing with. So I will say that these type of exercises are powerful, okay? Look how people use these same type of exercises when they are working through mental problems, they're battling weight problems, things of that sort. It helps to what? Rewrite the subconscious mind. Now, our subconscious negative thoughts usually are located at the back of our head, and it shoots right on up to the front. And if any of you are familiar with the chakras, that is definitely going to block your third eye chakra, and it's going to block your crown chakra. Okay, it's going to affect that. So what we're doing is, when you're doing these type of exercises, I feel, is shaking up the core here. It's really getting you to really see fear for what it is, because the key word of what I said in this video is chasing your fears. You have to chase it, because immediately when we are afraid of this energy, we go for running, we go for hide, we avoid it, right? We mask on other situations on top of what we're afraid of to ignore it and pretend it's not there. But I hate to say this fear is always going to follow you, right? The first question we ask, I told you guys to ask yourself, is how long has fear been a factor in your life? If some of you are saying more than 20, 30 years plus, it don't matter where you're at in your life, what you're doing, it's still going to follow you. Whatever you have fear of individually in your life. Some of you, your fear may be about relationships and loving again, but you're still keeping that energy. So what that does is that creates a wall of what's trying to come in. You want to attract